Oh, my name is John Minot. I'm the senior tour guide at the Masonic Temple in Philadelphia, a meeting place and headquarters for the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania. Oh, because I think it's just a tremendous building. To me, it's sort of maybe weird isn't the right word, but it's a secret of its charm is that it's eccentric and really in good taste. It was consciously built as to produce something of great beauty. Well, it's, I've been here so long that now the best way for me to enjoy the building is through the awe that my guests have. But we are, I think, one of Philadelphia's hidden treasures. We've taken some recent steps to develop a broader recognition. So that's helping. But I still think, as I said, we are one of Philadelphia's hidden treasures. Well, I try to inject a little humor. So it's not all dry art facts or architecture facts. I've noticed that people are really curious about the fraternity. So I think it's very important, as much as possible, to give a short explanation of Freemasonry, along with explanations of the rooms and the art and the architecture. Well, I think it's important not only because this building is just magnificent, so even if it wasn't us, the Freemasons, preserving it, it should be preserved, but also as a testament to the incredible role Freemasonry has played I think today, unfortunately, people don't know the great thrust for liberalism that Freemasonry was. Many of my fellow brethren are the salt of the earth, but they're fairly conservative. I think some of them don't realize that they belong to one of the great Enlightenment societies that helped push the ideas of the Enlightenment across Europe. I mean, we did have a significant role, but to me it seems often as if people think that we thought of the revolution, planned the revolution, and executed the revolution all by ourselves. But for instance, 9 of the signers of the Declaration of Independence were Freemasons out of 56, but 28 of them were also Episcopalians, and no one is saying that the Episcopal Church was one of the main reasons for the revolution. So yes, I think it's important to acknowledge the role that Freemasons played in helping to spread the constitutional ideas of England and the ideas of the Enlightenment. But you also have to understand that all the non-Freemason founding fathers were equally versed in the English constitutional law, English liberties, and the ideas of the Enlightenment. So I don't want to take away from, I think that we did have an impact, but I think one of my roles is to sort of put it more in context. We get too much credit, either positive or negative. It's depending on the French or views of the revolution. Like the French right wing to this day sort of hate Freemasonry because they view it as one of the principal causes, and the Grand Orient of France, on the other side, are very proud of the role that they emphasize the role of Freemasons. As you'll see from my talk, it's a more nuanced in that we probably don't have quite the role that we give it credit for, but it's still amazing how many of the philosophers that provided a lot of the underpinning ideology were Freemasons. Especially at the beginning, 4 out of the 10 most prominent revolutionaries were Freemasons, and until the revolution went radical, they had an amazing impact. And we had both sides. You had some pro-constitutional monarchists, and then of course you had Jean-Paul Marat, who was a right-wing journalist. Well, I don't want to imply that most of them are not aware of our rich history, but certainly if you've led a somewhat sheltered life as a Mason in Pennsylvania, and you're not a big student of history or art and stuff, you can come here and realize the role that Freemasonry has played in the world. Well, you don't have to make reservations. At the moment, well, if you have a large group, you do need to make. We need to know, if it's over 15. We run tours at 10, 11, 1, 2, and 3. It's always a good idea to call ahead because sometimes we close the building for Masonic events or weddings or things like that, and we're not always maybe as good as we should be at updating that information. So especially if someone is coming from a long way and their main purpose is seeing the building, they should call ahead of time and establish that we will be open at the time they wish.
Generally, I try to discuss the actual history of the building itself, which tends to focus on why did somebody want this set up this way. We have these ornately decorated rooms, and I think it's more interesting, why did people in the 1870s and 1880s decide they had to have a room that is a museum quality replica of an Egyptian tomb? Why? Why did they decide to build an Italian cathedral in miniature? I think, of course, a lot of people ask, so what do they actually do here? I try to explain the very basics of, it's a fraternity. This is an extremely interesting and ornate building. And there's a lot to see. Practical decisions that had to be made, things like how did they light this in 1873 before they had electricity, and then what was done in 1889 when the building got electricity to accommodate both those decisions and the new electric lights. What did we do when we got a modern HVAC system, but we still have Victorian ductwork? It tends to trend towards questions about what Freemasonry is, what they do. There are some people who get confused because they understand that this is a museum and they don't realize it's also still in active use. And then I tend to often get the question, so what determines which room a lodge meets in? And I explain, well, they signed a lease in 1880 and they've been meeting in the same room ever since.